Batman has been a staple of comic books for over 80 years now. In fact, until recently, he was the second highest selling comic creation ever in the history of entertainment. Obviously, number one being Superman. But it was recently replaced. There is another comic book character or creation that has actually passed lifetime sales of Batman, and it's something I think that we should acknowledge. And I think it really not only gives you an idea of the scope of just how popular manga is, but really also just how popular DC Comics characters have been, specifically Batman and Superman. One Piece has officially passed lifetime sales of Batman. There's some really interesting points to make about what this means. Obviously, Batman's been around for 80 years. One Piece has only been around for 25 years, but there are obviously some distinct differences between the characters and the way that they have been produced over the years. DC Comics Batman has been produced in periodicals, i.e. floppy comics, as you and I would call them, and those make up the vast majority of lifetime sales for Batman. Whereas you look at the accounting for One Piece lifetime sales, they're only talking about the trade volumes, essentially, the volumes that you can buy collected. They don't include the sales of Shonen Jump, where One Piece was introduced and has continued to tell stories in. So congratulations to Eiichiro Oda and the other people behind One Piece. This is magnificent. I can't believe the level of success that they have been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time in comparison to some of these other characters. And I do believe there's a good chance that One Piece will eventually pass up worldwide lifetime sales of Harry Potter. Think about that. The impact, the cultural impact that Harry Potter has essentially had on the Western culture. That is what One Piece obviously has done in the East, and it has certainly made its way over here into the zeitgeist of Western culture as well. So let's get to the article, get to the numbers, and talk about what it all means. It was hard for One Piece, the best-selling manga in history, to break even more records, and yet the grand tale of adventure created by Eiichiro Oda 25 years ago just did that. One Piece has sold over 500 million copies worldwide, becoming one of only 2 literary works in history to achieve that, the other being Harry Potter. In the process, One Piece outsold the second best-selling American comic book character, Batman. The manga started being serialized in Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump in July of 1997 and quickly gained popularity thanks to its blend of action, adventure, comedy, and mystery. Oda was able to create a huge world that is incredibly deep in terms of lore, history, and characters, which resonated with fans, creating a huge following worldwide. It's shocking when you think about the sheer volume that One Piece has actually produced over 25 years. 100 volumes of One Piece. I think it's over 100 actually now. I think that happened in September. Have actually been produced. Over 1,000 chapters of the story have been produced and read by people. And to continue delivering the quality after that span of time is absolutely breathtaking. That is an amazing accomplishment, that you could keep the same creative team on a book like that for 25 years and produce that much volume of actual material. You think about Batman, and yes, it has over 490 million copies sold in 80 years, but how many writers are out there? How many different formats has that comic book character actually been produced over the years? And to kind of stick to what they've done, do it so well. And the coolest thing about it with One Piece, you can go to volume 1, you can read it all the way through volume 100. It's a straight story. There are no deviations. There's no side quests, which is one of the things that I think modern comic books, DC and Marvel, who I'm talking about specifically, can really learn from the accomplishment and success of what One Piece has done. I know a lot of people will say, why compare manga and American comic books? Western, not even the same thing. There's a reason that their sales numbers are collected in the same group, added to the same metric. They are essentially the same thing, and there's a reason there's subgenres, subcategories for the sales analysis, where you have manga and you have superheroes and you have some other subcategories. It's like saying that Dogman and Batman are completely different. Well, certainly there are different genres and subgenres, but they're comic books. Manga and Western comics belong to the same family, and you can definitely learn from what they are doing over at Shueisha, Shonen Jump, and on One Piece, and you can adapt some of those ideas to Western comic books. Do I think that you would find the success that One Piece has? No, I mean, this is historic stuff. This has never been duplicated, but there are certainly lessons that DC Comics and Marvel Comics can learn from the manga strategy as far as ease of entry to keep going along with the story. Also, their anime strategy is absolutely brilliant. It blows what DC and Marvel do out of the water. Now, you can say, but the MCU and Marvel strategies with their movies blow, what One Piece is doing out of the water. Absolutely. There are things that manga can learn from the Western comics industry as well. But what I'm saying is this success doesn't have to be isolated to One Piece or manga. There are ideas there that can be taken into American comic books and molded and shaped and used to grow the audience and awareness and appreciation for American comics as well. There are a lot of things I personally think that American comics do better than manga. I like the colored art. I'll say this. I think if manga publishers or if Viz, they go out there and they say, you know what? Let's go take some of these classic mangas, talk to the creators, the originators, and if they're okay with it, let's pay to have them colored and see if we can release those in Western audiences, and maybe people will like them even more. I think there is like an enormous opportunity for manga to take over even bigger in America. I think that adds a level of creativity and enjoyment that you can add to the story that would definitely penetrate other cultures and other readers even more than they are right now. In July of 2021, sales reports for One Piece volumes worldwide reached over 490 million, making it the best-selling manga series and the best-selling comic series printed in book volumes in history. Now, updated sales numbers show that One Piece has surpassed 500 million copies in circulation, meaning that it can compete not just with manga or comics printed in book volumes, but also with the most popular American comic books, including the two bestsellers, Superman and Batman. The comparison is a bit tricky, however. The so-called American comic book format consists of thinner periodicals stapled together, not volumes. Additionally, Superman and Batman, like most superheroes, are written and drawn by different creative teams over the years, and their sales figures mostly encompass periodicals, not volumes. And I don't mean this as like a slight on DC or Marvel or Batman and Superman on that, but when you think about it, one of the real selling points of American periodicals is the price. They're kind of cheap. Once you start going into these volumes, they're a little bit more expensive, although I will say that manga has a great price in a really good format for what they're trying to do for mass distribution of large collections of comic books. I think that their idea and their strategy is superior to what we're doing in American comic books, where a lot of the inherent value in an American comic book is collectability. You have all these speculators coming in because they think in the future there could be a lot of value associated with the comic book because it's a first appearance, or maybe there's an artist on the cover that's special or whatnot. The value inherent with the volume of manga is the entertainment itself. They don't do, for the most part, variant covers. They do multiple types of collections, but it's normally pretty limited. Whereas with DC and Marvel, with a story like Watchmen, I mean, how many versions have there been published at this point? That's one of the most popular best-selling comic stories in the history of the industry. I bet you there's over 20 different versions of Watchmen that have been produced and distributed over the years. They don't really do that with manga. I think they're more intent on getting out new stories and making sure that there's a value there as far as the entertainment. And I think that singular focus and the drive for them and identifying what is working and making sure that's what you're producing and putting it out there really has separated them from the pack at this point. But it doesn't have to be this way. There's no reason that Batman and Superman can't catch up and pass One Piece, specifically with the inherent value of periodicals and how kind of cheap they are in comparison to volumes and stuff like that. So I think this is an enormous statement regarding the success and popularity of One Piece and manga, but also an enormous statement about the success and popularity of Batman and Superman and their staying power. And DC Comics should really be smart about their strategies with Superman moving forward. This isn't a character that they should just discard, which it kind of appears like they're doing right now. Batman was clearly surpassed as reported sales for all its comic books, starting from the first appearance in 1939, only get to about 484 million, while Superman is still ahead with more than 600 million approximate sales. If one were to account for the sales of Weekly Shonen Jump, for each year that One Piece has been featured on it, the numbers would be much closer. Still, beating The Dark Knight in terms of sales is no small feat, considering the character has been around for 83 years, and he is one of the most recognized popular culture icons in the world. Absolutely. You think about what Batman means. You can put that symbol anywhere almost in the world, and people are going to know exactly what it is and what it stands for. I don't think you can actually do that with One Piece, because I do think the efforts by DC Comics and Warner Brothers to make Batman bigger than comic books have ultimately been very successful. You can see the success at the box office right now of the Batman himself and the amount of Batman movies that we've had over the years. So in that respect, I do think Batman's a bigger character because I think people recognize who the character is, the iconography, the symbols, the origin story associated with him. And that there really tells you how successful Shueisha and the other people behind One Piece, including Oda, have been getting the word out there and getting people hooked on the product and coming back for more. I know a lot of people, including myself, like to talk about the competition or perceived competition going on between manga and Western comic books and how manga is absolutely wiping the floor with them, at least in printed volumes and whatnot, and printed sales and people consuming the product. And that's absolutely true. But I want to see a comic book industry where manga is on the rise and has a major place in it, but Western comics step up to the plate and really try to meet them head on and try to adapt some of the ideas there and make Western comics even better. And really, let's get out of just North America. Let's get out of just Europe. Let's spread this thing worldwide. But it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of new innovations and ideas as far as distribution and getting the word out. Manga really do have a lot of advantages over Western comics. It's not just because of the art or the way that it's packaged, but the way that it's marketed and the way that they've gotten the word out and the way that it's so accessible and affordable really to everybody. Western comics here in the Philippines are outrageously expensive in comparison to manga. Obviously, manga are produced here in Asia, and they have distribution deals which make them pretty affordable on the market here with other forms of entertainment that are out there. And I can tell you right now, Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and the Avengers and X-Men, they just aren't. They're so expensive. It's cost prohibitive. And you almost have to be rich to be able to afford to read, Western comic books in this country. You're losing an entire generation, an entire country's worth of potential reading customers for the foreseeable future. And that's not obviously just relegated here to the Philippines, which has a long history with comic books and going out there and writing and illustrating Western comic books. But, all the regions around here are kind of the same way. So it's something I think that we should definitely tip your cap to One Piece, the creators and everyone behind that, and the enormous success, and definitely hope that DC and Marvel realize what's happening and decide that they want to go meet them head on and see what happens. Obviously, this is not a manga first channel. This is a comic book channel, but I certainly do talk about manga from time to time. Not that long ago, my good friend Perch and I had a conversation about a couple of ways DC and Marvel could look at manga and understand what they were doing and incorporate those strategies into their own publishing lines. This is a really interesting conversation, and I think it really illustrates how DC and Marvel could learn from manga and really start growing sales.